Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, back with another episode of Locals Live. Are you sick of Guru yet? I know I am. I've ordered something in the mail that should be here by next week, so this is the last time you will have to endure me activating the effect of Subterror Guru on this channel. Even in this game it doesn't resolve. This is the losers bracket of my locals this past week. Why am I showing a losers bracket match? Well, my opponent was on something deliciously spicy, World Chalice Orcust. Well, Orcust is Orcust, and there's really only so much you could do with it, but when my opponent starts their turn with a normal monster, normal summon, I knew that I was glad to have this on tape. I give them a little bit of a thumbs up, chuckling to myself. They go into an Imduck, and for those of you that don't know, this card has text on it. You can see that I'm unfamiliar with it. If there's one thing I like to do, it's read a card. And if there's a second thing I like to do, it's read a card a whole bunch of times. One of my set cards is Summon Limit. One of the very easy ways to be confident about Guru is, of course, by relying on the extreme power of the floodgates that make up the core of the deck. My opponent's going to attack my monster in the same column as theirs. Wait, why does that... So Imduck has an effect which, before the damage step, destroys any monster that it battles with that ends up in the same column. So we're first trying to figure out exactly how Imduck works with regard to flip effect monsters. Of course, flip effect monsters are flipped during the damage step, and Imduck triggers before they would be flipping, so we're getting into a little bit of a discussion with the judge over whether or not I'll be able to add this final battle to my hand. I believe the judge ends up finally ruling, after a little bit of deliberation, that Imduck can in fact destroy this monster before it resolves, which is frustrating for me, but really good news for my opponent. I'm not in too much of a hot seat yet. As you can see, I have Summon Limit and multiple floodgates up, so I have a fair amount of time to find a way out. My opponent next turn will be able to access Nightmare Phoenix, which should clean up the Summon Limit, so I will need to get something going pretty quickly, however. Alright, a quick look at the damage step page on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki. We're checking it right now. Oh, don't look at my sensitive cellular information. There's something to be said for Yu-Gi-Oh! Matches that begin with a rules dispute. At the very least, it's a little bit of truth in advertising, since about 80% of the games you play will end like this, one of you scrubbing your phone desperately in order to look up the damage step chart, unintentionally flipping off the camera in the process. Unintentional, I assure you. My opponent's going to activate the effect of Imduck, and my copy of Guru is going to be sent to the graveyard. My opponent's going to cut, because of course I illegally searched my deck, and then I'll look at a couple of set cards and pass priority back to them. They're going to set one card, I'll draw for turn. Ooh, a Hidden City off the top. You got to shuffle your hand in scenarios like this so your opponent doesn't know you just ripped the copy off the top. They like to feel like you have it already and have just been waiting for the opportunity. We're going to set this copy of Guru in a different zone this time, notably, and they're Called by the Grave, targeting our other Guru. That's unfortunate, but I am happy to have my Guru in attack position. Going to go ahead and banish the Guru from my graveyard before looking one more time at Imduck. There's no movement that can happen when I attack this, is there? I already missed one effect. Who's to say I won't miss another? I'll attack an Imduck and it goes to the graveyard. Thank the Lord. I'm going to activate Fiendus on the effective Imduck and then flip my copy of Guru face down. Pulling up the notes section of my planner right here, you get to see that it's mostly blank. I promise that I've used it in the past. My opponent's going to draw for turn, and ooh, that's a Lee in the hand. Lee is one of those cards that was always extremely powerful, but never really had a home. I think the closest it ever reached playability was during this weird Firewall FTK format in which there was a World Chalice deck that could consistently find a copy of Gamciel and activate 4 or 5 negates with counters over the course of a turn. We've come a long way since then. They're going to add a copy of World Legacy World Chalice to hand, and this is a frightening card. Thankfully, it does banish for cost, so at some point I'll be able to Fiendus it. They'll lead with an Orchestrated Return, and wow, that's an interesting include in the deck. I believe World Legacy World Chalice might be the only target, but it's so searchable that it actually seems incredibly powerful. You can see they've drawn into a copy of Mystic Shineball. That always seems to happen to me when I'm playing decks like this. Okay, they'll pass it back. I'll activate Hidden City, targeting my set copy of Guru and the second Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Well, that's fine. I can always flip summon. I'll activate the effect of Guru, and thankfully we should be able to get a Fiendus off of this. Always want to play around as much as possible in scenarios like these. We'll take a quick perusal through our deck and find a Fiendus on the absolute top of it. Alright. eventually electing to add our Omni Negator to hand, and oh, I'm going to miss casting this card. We'll attack into this copy of Lee, deal a fair amount of damage, and then pass it back to our opponent. For turn, our opponent draws a copy of Unexpected Die. This is an incredibly powerful card in these types of strategies. Because of access to Link Spider, they're able to special summon a normal from their deck. Afterwards, they can Link Summon Link Spider, then activate Link Spider's deck to special summon another normal without wasting their normal summon. It's full Orcust combo in exactly 0 summons, leaving a lot of room for error. They're going to activate Unexpected Die, getting one of the old Avrams from their deck, it appears. I'm going to look at the graveyard real quickly, and oh goodness, wow, that World Legacy World Chalice is looking frightening. Okay. Our opponent is going to settle on a target for this Unexpected Die. And of course, I know that World Legacy World Chalice is coming up. After that, they're going to take a quick look at their hand, that Shine Ball staring back at them. Well, it's at the very least a good summon off of Link Spider, provided that summon limit goes away. They'll activate the effect of World Legacy World Chalice, and we will Fiendus it. I am not looking to play that game. You can see the shimmer of a Nibiru in our opponent's hand, and oh, yikes, that is not a good card against our strategy. As a strong opponent of main deck Nibiru, I've been in this situation enough times to understand why I'm done getting in it forever. They're going to set a card, and that's just about 2 summons, so they'll pass it back. For turn, we draw... Ooh, what is that? A copy of Pot of Extravagance? Don't mind if I do. Oh, goodness. It always seems to be magnetically drawn to the very top of the deck when I'm in parity scenarios. So we'll banish 6 cards off the top. It's all Super Poly targets anyway, so I'm not particularly beat up about what we're getting rid of. I'll draw a couple of cards, and an Ash and a Cosmic Cyclone are just what I need. I'm going to use the effect of Guru once again. This one's a little difficult. Guru with summon limit on board is frustrating because, of course, flip summoning counts towards the limits on summon. So truthfully, you don't get a whole bunch of opportunities to summon additional monsters. We elect to go for a final battle here. I figure we'll probably have to, at some point, actually negate something. I'm going to attack into the set monster, and no Venus. We have a little too many cards in our hand. We'll set the final battle and keep the Cosmic Cyclone for later. For turn, our opponent draws an Infinite Impermanence. Gonna look at the graveyard real quickly. Nope, there is not a World Legacy World Chalice, though there is a Lee. Looks like they're thinking about proccing the effect of Lee. They will declare it, discarding a card out of their hand to add it back. After that, they're going to fan their hand out, and I give a little bit of a chuckle at a Nibiru. Not particularly good in this scenario, is it? They'll normal summon Lee, activate the effect. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about ashing this card. That's 1 summon. And their second is, of course, going to be a Nightmare Phoenix. Now, awkwardly, I don't have negation for this card. They kind of have to aim for the summon limit, I think, and unfortunately for us, we don't have a way to protect it. Fan out the graveyard real quickly. There is nothing remaining that does anything important. They can attack into our Subterror Guru, but of course we do have the final battle, which means we'll be able to defeat it in the damage step. They're thinking about, I don't know, potentially going into Mermaid, and instead they elect to set a copy of Infinite Impermanence and pass it back. We'll lead with a copy of Cosmic Cyclone, taking 1,000 damage in the process. They'll activate Infinite Impermanence, targeting our copy of Subterror Guru, and I'm completely happy with that. We're going to set a card, and with the knowledge that our copy of Subterror Final Battle is off, we can just pass it back to our opponent pretty safely. They are going to go into Mermaid, and they'll activate her effect, discarding the remaining card in hand. Which I don't have an answer for. They're then going to go into a Nightmare Orcust, but here's where we turn on the floodgates once again. I'll flip up a copy of There Can Be Only One after resolution, my opponent motioning to the 5 set cards saying you've got to have something that negates this play. And unfortunately for them, I do. I know that I'm the one who activated There Can Be Only One, but does anyone else get frustrated at this type of gameplay? Very interesting, innovative deck that unfortunately can't get through these I win buttons consistently printed by Konami. Why do cards like Summon Limit and There Can Be Only One exist? What do they add to the game? What does it say about us that we continue to play a game that includes them? My opponent is likely pondering these questions when he passes back. At end step, I'm going to activate the effect of Final Battle to set my copy of Guru, prompting a pop-off on my next turn. Ooh, a duality. Unfortunately, I don't really have any room to activate it. We'll use Guru to... Ooh, choices. There's so much we can do now. I suppose I will get a copy of Archer? Seems alright. We'll normal summon the Archer, and while our monsters are unlikely to have the requisite attack points necessary to safely get over Mermaid, we do have a copy of Final Battle, which I'll motion to when going to combat. We'll attack into this copy of Mermaid, it'll go to the graveyard, and we don't have the ability to walk over the copy of Nightmare just yet. I'm going to look at the Stranded Duality in my hand and pass it back. Our opponent draws for turn. Ooh, is that a Venus. Those shine balls looking much less powerful now, and they'll scoop it up. For game 2, of course, we are going second. Let's see how hard our opponent aims to pop off. You can see we've drawn, I believe, an Ash Blossom, which should curtail our opponent's turn, but we have no linear game plan of our own to speak of. They've drawn quite well. You can see a copy of Lead the World Chalice Fairy. They will normal summon that and activate its effect. I don't exactly know when I'm supposed to be stopping the combo. Doing it at the Mermaid stage seems too late because it could very easily discard an extraneous Orcust and pop off regardless. So I figure in the face of an unknown archetype, I might as well Ash as early as possible. They're going to activate the effect of Lee. I'll take a look at it. Yes, in fact, you can Ash this. All it does is search. I'll think and then decide to throw the Ash in the graveyard. My opponent looks at the hand and says, "Ah, I guess I will set a Cosmic Cyclone and pass." I am positively giddy at the prospect of being able to take my own turn. We draw an Infinite Impermanence. Ooh, before we do anything else, we could negate the effects of Lee. You can see we've got both a Hidden City and a Pot of Duality in the opener. I suppose we'll start with the latter. Let's fire off this copy of Pot of Duality, and what do we see off the top? Anything would be so good here. A Fiendus, a Nibiru, a second, okay. Well, that's about as bad as it gets. You don't want to take Duality, but at the same time, Nibiru loses a lot of its playability if your opponent can see it coming. In this way, I suppose it's sort of like Summon Limit, except that your opponent can plan for it. Yeah, I'm trying to talk myself into a very bad Duality keep, and it looks a lot worse after my opponent's able to stop this Hidden City. Oof. Cosmic Cyclone is a very good answer to it. You'll notice I left it in the graveyard. Is it a misplay or a subtle cheat attempting to activate Magician of Faith later in the match? You decide. Please don't decide against me. This is a joke, Konami. Come on, be cool. We look at the hand and, oof, there's not much going on. 2 Gurus, a Nibiru, and an Infinite Impermanence. I guess we'll set a Guru and an Infip, and I hope that gets us out of it. Our opponent's hand is looking absolutely stacked. They will go ahead and normal summon a copy of World Chalice Guard Dragon. Now, World Chalice Guard Dragon does a ton for the deck. Not only is it protection, it's also extension. This card is probably unfamiliar to any of you who have not had to deal with the specific screwery that is Dragon Link, or those of you who didn't suffer through World Chalice's original phase of playability, but neither were particularly long or particularly prominent, so I won't blame you if you're unfamiliar. They go into Phoenix, trying to target our set card. It's not a Floodgate, just a meager Infinite Impermanence. Don't worry, you are fine. Afterwards, they elect to go to battle phase, attacking into our copy of Guru. I'll activate the effect of Guru. They say, okay, that's fine, I suppose. Of course, Guru cannot get Guru, so we are going to have to settle for something else. We have a Fiendus in our deck that's just calling our name, so we'll go ahead and grab her before we send this Guru to the graveyard. Things are looking quite bad. Of course, all our opponent has to do here is go into Mermaid, then activate the effect of Mermaid, sending a card from their hand to the graveyard, and oh my goodness, they're both hand traps. Wild how that seems to always happen. Well, let's send an Ash. They're going to get a copy of Nightmare Orcust. Shuffle the deck real quickly before Link summoning Galatea. Now, notably, this is 4 summons, but there's not really a good chance to Nibiru. Because Nibiru has to be used in the main phase, our opponent can just extend through it. I figure the one that sort of forces him to commit everything to this board is probably the best. Scratch my head for a second and think, okay, this is the 5th summon. I know that they know that I have Nibiru, but I do think I have to do it anyway. More importantly, this leaves the Nibiru token with 0 defense, which, conceivably, I could probably attack over. I'm going to go ahead and drop the rock. Just absolutely no reaction out of my opponent who knows what's coming. They're going to make a token real quickly, pulled from our OTS packs. Unfortunately for me, they're still fine. They're going to go ahead and activate the effect of Harp Horror in Graveyard to get a copy of Symbol Skeleton from deck. After that, they can safely Link Summon using the token. This is frustrating, but does in fact work. Beforehand, though, they'll flex a little bit to show that they could actually Link Summon Link Spider if they had to. That elicits a chuckle out of me as well, shaking the entire camera, before they go into Galatea and pop off. They'll activate the effect of, the Symbol Skeleton in Graveyard for a second Galatea, and then the Galatea effect in order to get an Orcust Crescendo. Things are looking quite grim. A quick shuffle of the deck, and I'm kind of concerned about where Ding is going to fit into this. I assume that they're not particularly anxious about the rock on our side of the board. It's possible they ding just to reattach from the banished zone, but in fact they elect to send our unfortunate rocky boy back to his home planet. Hurry, friend. My planet needs me. In the wise, wise words of Big Money Salvia, ain't no Nibiru, 'cause ain't no Planet X, 'cause ain't no Globe Earth. Our opponent agrees, and after much deliberation, elects to send our rocky bungaloid to the graveyard. We'll draw for turn, and it's a Terraforming. That's a good card. Unfortunately, a better card is Orcust Climax. So we are going to bend our cards as best as possible, destroying the resale value of them, should I ever decide to part with this deck. We'll activate Terraforming to get a copy of Hidden City. No pressure from our opponent to negate it, because of course we can only activate 1 Hidden City per turn. Negating the Terraforming punishes exactly the hand that already includes a Hidden City, so we'll go ahead and, no reason to play around it, I suppose. Activate the Hidden City, eat an Orcust Crescendo, and decide, we do not need to stay in this game much longer. I'll look at the couple of cards in my hand, think about setting this Guru, recognize that there's about 1,000 ways from Sunday we are dead, and scoop them up for Game 3. So, for Game 3 we are going first. That's great news for us. We're looking to find some number of floodgates, and you can see we found none of them. Is that 2 called by? Well, I'm not unhappy to see that. The trick to playing Guru is always to open Hidden City, and I'm proud to announce that I am the best Guru player in the known universe. We're going to activate Hidden City. It isn't negated, which means we will add a copy of Fiendus to hand, telegraphing that we already have the Guru. Afterwards, we're going to set a copy of Guru. This is where we were Ghost Ogred so unfairly of late, and we'll activate the Guru's effect as well. I'm going to get Final Battle here. It's almost always correct to get Final Battle, I feel, first turn, even if you already have a Final Battle in hand. I'd much prefer a second copy of the trap that at least does something than a copy of Archer that won't have any utility until the next turn. Our opponent's going to look at their grip, and oh my goodness, a Mystical Shine Ball. Well, an unexpected die off the top should do something. They're going to grab their grip one more time before starting to look at the litany of monsters within their library. Now, the real flex would be getting a Mystical Shine Ball here as well. Instead, they get a Beckoned by the World Chalice. Which specific World Chalice is that? I'm not up to date with my World Legacy lore. Shameful, I know. They'll head back to their hand, and that Venus just doesn't look very alluring into 4 sets. Think of all the ways it could go wrong. Now, noticing something, they're going to ask me real quickly, where exactly are these located? And I specify, don't worry, I've learned from my Imduck. Obviously cognizant of the fact that we're playing Summon Limit, they're deliberating quite a lot about what they want to commit their potential only other summon to. And I think finally understand that it's not going to matter very much. If I have it, I have it, and if I don't, I don't. It's time to go into Link Spider. So as noted in the first game, they still haven't committed to a normal summon, despite having access to 3 material. They'll special summon a copy of Mystical Shine Ball from hand. And then they'll send that to the graveyard in order to get a copy of Imduck. This nets them an additional normal summon. Remember, they haven't taken the normal summon yet. I'm anxiously looking at my 2 copies of Called by the Grave thinking, why did I leave this card in exactly? They'll normal summon a copy of World Legacy Guardragon, and immediately I will remember why I did. While World Legacy Guardragon does banish for cost, it also targets the monster that it will be summoning. That means I can activate the effect of Called by the Grave in order to banish the card that it'll be bringing back. They're going to go into the extra deck once again to fiend themselves a fiend of their own, a Nightmare Phoenix. They'll activate the effect of Phoenix, and I have more than enough for them to destroy. Really mulling over this one. Both of these cards are so explosive, and they will have to lose one almost immediately. But recognizing that it's unlikely that that copy of Venus is really going to get anywhere this match, they send it to the graveyard in order to roll a die and pick a card. I have no attachment to this, so I will pick no negation in order to prevent my monster's effects from being negated. My opponent takes a quick look at the card before thinking, okay, well, I still get to draw, don't I? From our opponent's position, it likely looks like they still have a lot to chew through. But of course, from ours, we know that all 3 of these cards are completely useless. They've got an Orcust Crescendo in hand. That should come in handy eventually. In the meantime, though, they've got to plan their next decision. Could go into Mermaid, but of course that loses to, well, just about everything at this point. They'll check out their graveyard one additional time. Of course, they do have access to a special summon via monsters in the graveyard. Instead, they're going to attack. In damage step, I'm going to activate a final battle in order to make my monster just a little bit beefier. They'll read the text on battle, making sure they know how much they're taking, but prompting it is still pretty good here. I don't really want to put it face down because I do have plans for the remaining cards in my hand. Alright, safely in main phase 2, they take another look at their grip. Crescendo can feel good to draw in hands where you're already popping off, but in scenarios where you need to chew through multiple pieces of disruption, it can really feel like the brick it is. They're going to go ahead and activate the effect of World Legacy Guardragon, targeting their monster in the graveyard. They say, oh, it's got to be an effect monster in response to the call, and I say, for some reason, it doesn't. I have no idea. Afterwards, they're going to go into a Mermaid, finally commit to the play. And, of course, this is what I've been waiting for all along. They'll discard the remaining monster from their hand, and I'll discard the remaining monster from mine, flipping my monster face down in the process. Unfortunately for us, we are almost out of interaction. We have 1 remaining called, and nothing going other than that. Quick perusal into their extra deck, and it doesn't look like our opponent has much left to do. Instead, they'll elect to pass it back, and we draw a Super Polymerization with 0 cards in hand. We'll flip up our copy of Guru. We now have a card for Super Poly, but the board's not really in a position where it's any good. We're thinking about getting an Archer here. Obviously, I always want to be able to get a Fiendus, but it's a little too alluring, I think. I look at my hand a couple of times, add an Archer, look at the card in the graveyard. and pass it back to my opponent. So now that we have a beater in hand, we can start getting in. I'm going to normal summon this copy of Archer. Our opponent has nothing to say. So I explain the effect of Archer and how it's completely inapplicable on a board of exclusively Link monsters. They nod and give me the go-ahead to proceed to battle phase. Now what's frustrating is that my monsters have a meager amount of attack points, but I can still get over this copy of Link Spider, provided in the damage step I add the attack and defense of my Guru together. That should do a cool, what, 400 damage to them? Yeah, that sounds about right. And afterwards, because this monster is no longer linked, we can get in for 600. We are pretty firmly in the driver's seat of this game. It doesn't look like there's really anything that can dampen our spirits, until I end the battle phase and my opponent reveals the remaining card in his hand, the one I don't know about and I'm not frightened of, is actually evenly matched, ripped off the top of the deck from the Phoenix draw. Otherwise it would have been activated almost immediately. Frustrating. I will call one of my opponent's monsters. Probably pretty important to get that copy of World Chalice out. And I'm also going to activate the effect of Guru to flip both himself and the Archer face down. This way I'll at least be able to activate the effect of Guru should it get attacked into. But of course it's not fantastic. We're still banishing all but the Guru, including our remaining copy of Final Battle. We don't play 3, so this set copy of Super Polymerization with no cards in hand is going to have to pull its weight. Our opponent draws return, takes a look at the graveyard. Remember, the remaining card in hand is an Orcust Crescendo, so we should be fine. And with no ability to float from the graveyard, a rare position for Orcust to be in. Oh wow, did they draw Foolish Burial? Incredible! Okay, well, there's so many things they can send here that are so devastating. But Lee the World Chalice Fairy is pretty far up on that list. You could get Nightmare Orcust. Yikes. There's so much you could do. To take a quick look at their banished zone and think, ooh, World Wand is actually exceptionally cute here. After a little bit of deliberation, it looks like they are going to pick World Wand. Now, a funny thing about World Wand, while you usually see it as Orcust support, that's not all that it does. It's able to banish itself to bring back World Legacy, World Chalice as well. Now, this is a problem, you know, should I ever find myself in a position where I'm trying to attack into a copy of World Legacy, World Chalice, but it's not that big of a deal just yet. They haven't used their normal summon, but, whew. Unfortunately, playing with perfect information, we know what that card in hand is. We're going to flip up our copy of Guru and try and get back to the same position we were in before we were so rudely interrupted by Evenly Matched. We'll get a copy of Fiendus, going to be very critical for preventing that float. Alright, well, probably the first thing we do is go to combat and attack into this copy of World Chalice. And then we'll pass back. Critical to keep this card in face-up attack position so that we're able to use Fiendus. They'll activate the effect of Chalice, and I'll say, yes, this is in fact why I kept this card in the hand. We'll flip our monster face down. And they'll look at what they ripped off the top of the deck. We're really both playing with a complete lack of gas at this point. I'll look in the extra, and it doesn't look like there's much you can do from this position. But really combing for anything that could possibly make a difference. It looks like a Nightmare Corruptor Eebly and an Orcust Crescendo in hand. Yikes! I paw at the remainder of my grip. Thankfully, we do have a card in hand to trigger the Super Poly we have set should we need to. They'll set a card and pass it back to us. Okay, with the draw for turn, ooh, a Terraforming should lock this up. We'll lead with a Cosmic Cyclone, targeting our opponent's set card. And we find that, in fact, it was a bluff. From here, the game should be pretty easy to lock up. While we don't have access to very many attackers, Guru can get Fiendus, and importantly, Hidden City can get Guru. This means we'll be able to push in for at least 3,200 points of damage. We'll instinctively grab a new Mostrix and then think, oh no, actually that is the wrong card. Let's go ahead and grab a Fiendus. You want to play around the second and third evenly, more than you want to lose the game for having an unremarkable brick in your opener. Afterwards, we're going to Terraforming. That Terraforming, of course, is going to turn into a copy of Hidden City, which in turn will turn into a copy of Guru. From here, things are looking pretty choice. Unfortunately, these two monsters have the same type, so we can't go for the Mud Dragon Lethal. We'll push in for 3,200 points of damage and pass it back to our opponent. One final cut of the deck, and it all rests on this draw. It's an evenly matched! Oh, it's just a little bit too late, though. I have a Fiendus in the hand, and as a result, I should be able to deal with it. He's going to look at the Fiendus real quickly. The grim realization dawning on him that, unfortunately, we can negate the evenly matched. Well, go ahead and normal summon the Nightmare Conductor Eebly. I kind of scratch my head for a second and think, okay, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing, but I respect your right to do so. I'll read Eebly to see if there's something I'm missing. And he's giggling to himself. In that zone, it doesn't even do anything regardless. He'll attack into our copy of Guru, taking it in stride, and we'll snatch the set.